As I mentioned, hopefully you'll upload, so hopefully I can take some time. But as I mentioned, I will take some breaks because of football and some stuff. But anyways, today's review is on a big boy. The DC Multiverse, DC Rebirth, Clayface from McFarlane Toys. That's like I said DC like 2 times. Anyways, here is the big figure, and I have some opinions to talk about him. Because I actually kind of like this figure. Spoiler alert. Here is the box, and I'm going to complain about the box real quick. Alright. Here, I'll show you a comparison real quick. So, here is the Dark Side box. It's a gold label, I know. But as you could clearly see, look at the width. They are skinny. Now, don't get me wrong, with characters like Clayface and Madbat, they definitely need this type of box because they're pretty big. However, let's say Bane or Killer Croc. They need something like this. Because here's my complaint. This is how big it is. It takes over this whole space. Why? Why can't it just be this? You know? Maybe extend a little bit for like the statue, sure. But for the mega figures, for the skinnier characters, give them something like this. And if they're really big and bulky, give them something like this. With Clayface's case, it's fine. But with characters like Croc or Madbat, or Croc or Bane, or hell, even Necron, they are unacceptable for having such a big box. Alright? So anyways, let me put this back. Anyways, after me ranting about the box, yeah, the box is pretty big. So that's why we have this big window here. It says Clayface on the bottom. On the side, it says Clayface, DC Rebirth. Other side, Clayface, McFarlane Toys. On the top, it's just, again, it's so huge. And at the bottom, it's just like that. Here's the UPC if you're still looking for it. Oh, the memories. I actually remember I still wanted to get this figure in Target before it shipped out to like ATC Toy Shop or something like that. So, or any of my collector stores. So, yeah. Although there is a little bit of damage, but then again, I'm keeping this guy in the box. And no bio or anything. We get a 3D render. Unfortunately, this would start a brief trend where McFarlane Toys would use renders, 3D CGI renders for their figures. However, in the case of Clayface, it's not too bad, unlike stuff like the Batman vs. Hush 2-pack, which I will rant. Once I review that 2-pack, I will rant the ever-living hell out of that thing. I will rant off that 2-pack like it's something else. So yeah, that's Clayface. Now, I'll talk about some interesting opinions about this figure. So, is this figure going to be worth it? Well, let's dive right into the review. Let's start off with the main key point of this figure. The paint and the sculpt on this figure is, oh man, it's something else. Now, paint may be a little questionable, but the sculpt is something else, as I said before. Starting off with the head, there's a lot more different stuff here. For example, the jaw, it looks more like a bulldog, not gonna lie. It looks like a bulldog. The head, it's nice, but also really weirdly small when you compare it to the body. The teeth are nicely painted, same with the insides, and same with all this nice sculpt. Unlike, let's say, the Connect and Collect, it has a lot more different types of, sculpt onto it, which is really nice to see. I like the added, maybe I guess wrinkles you could say, and droopiness to the design, especially with the jaw. And then that also factors to just how different this figure is. And yes, this figure actually hurts. There is so many spiky points. Well, not as many, but there's a lot, especially towards this top area. But as you could clearly note, there are faces, which is such a really cool, yet a little disturbing thing to note. However, it's kind of unique. there's all these spikes and goops. It looks like it's dripping, which is so cool. I actually like that. You could see the faces around his body. You could see, you know, all those details. Just look at that. There's little faces here, which could go along with the fact that this guy was an actor before you turned into a supervillain. But look, man, look at that. Look at that arm. Ugh, it's so spiky. And yes, I am feeling it. It hurts. So don't try this at home. But if you notice there, yeah, you could see there's a hand. I actually like how droopy it looks. And then moving on to the hands itself, speaking of the hands, I even like them too, especially this one. This hand is perfect. It's like, it's droopy. It has this stretchy feeling to it, yet still looks robust. This hand as well. He has like these claws of sorts, which is cool. And then again, moving on to the body, just look at the droop. It's like a nice droopy feeling to it, which is cool. And then moving on to the legs, again, if you compare this with a Connect and Collect, which I'll put up on screen, the Connect and Collect, it's more simple in a way. It's rounded and whatnot, which I guess in terms of articulation makes it a better release. However, in terms of just paint and sculpt, I actually prefer this. Although I do wish there was a little bit more to kind of splice up the details. Like, let's say maybe a brown dry brush effect to highlight more detail than just this muddy brown. Because I did see, I think, one custom where it was more a little brighter, which I was fine with. And, oh man, just look at the detail. There's even another face there. And then moving on to the feet, yeah, they're just solid bricks of feet. And they look like they're just stomping goop, which is awesome. And I actually like this. And it also holds up his weight, actually surprisingly well, probably a lot better than that of the origin, than probably any other DC Multiverse figure. So, now in terms of accessories, he comes with a stand. Again, pretty boring, basic McFarlane stand. I think I've already ranted enough about it. But most of all, the trading card right there. Clayface, there's a 3D render. And at the back, read it right there. Pause to read this here. So, yeah. Alright, now let's move on to the articulation, which, spoiler alert, is its weakest point. As I said, articulation is probably where this figure kind of falls. Now, paint, I could live with, because the figure is a muddy dude. This dude looks like poop. That's what he literally is. He's poop. And the sculpt is good, but the articulation is, oh boy. And some of the design elements are so questionable. For example, the head, no swivel. I couldn't move it. And that's all you're going to be getting. I don't want to move it. And as he mentioned, jaw articulation, but it also feels really loose. But it does snug in nicely. Arms can go 360. However, if you noticed, they are a little loose. Because they are under a rotator. There is no rotator cuff. Unlike most DC Multiverse figures. Kind of a shame, because that would also fix another issue once I go to the torso. So that's why there is some butterfly joint and whatnot. He can go in and out. And don't get me started on biceps. Alright, the elbows are a nightmare. He can swivel it, but I will not bend this. Alright, I'll use this arm for example. There is articulation, but I'm not risking it. This doesn't feel like it needs it. It doesn't. And then the hands, oh, they're so ungodforsakenly tight. Like, why? It's a nightmare, especially how spiky this guy is. That felt like it could break. And then I feel like the most brittle part about the figure, the body. Why? As I mentioned before, this figure is hollow. And as you could see, Yes, it is. And that has this very cheap, plasticky feel, which makes it so disgusting to handle. Yeah, he has a very good articulation. Yeah, he can crouch back this far. Well, not as much. He can crouch back this far. He has tilt. Yeah, he has a waist swivel. But it doesn't feel right. It feels like it could snap at any given moment because of how hollow his body is. And then moving on to the legs, which surprisingly are the most posable part about the figure. He can kick up. He can kick back. How? He can't kick his butt, but he can kick back. And he can split. Somehow, even though, and in a way, he can balance it. That is actually cool. And then he has a thigh swivel, unexpectedly, when most DC Multiverse figures don't, and has a single swivel jointed knee. Why? Which, while yes, I do like the design element of making his feet a lot more flatter, oh man, it does leave a lot. See what I mean? That just sounded like pain and hell to me. So yeah, despite my rant with this, yeah, posability on this figure is not necessarily a strongest suit. Yes, you could get some good poses on this figure, but at the same time, it feels like it could break. Like, especially in the torso. That's why this figure more or less is like a statue. It's not like Bane, where at least there's some form of posability and fun factor, or Croc a little bit, or Man-Bat. Clayface, it's a little bit more on the worrying side because it feels like he could break. And also, another issue too is like, I wish he had some other accessories than just a card and then a stand. Like, I mean, yeah, sure, oh, he's like a Sandman copy. Well, even though Sandman is a lot more tragic as a character. But Clayface, at least give him like a hammer or an axe or something like that. Like, come on, it's not gonna be that bad. It's something that all the fans wanted. So, yeah, all right. Now let's move on to the size comparison. Size comparison time. This figure stands at almost 8 inches, and if you want to compare it, and that ruler just fell. Here is Shang-Chi. Yeah, this figure is huge. And for another comparison, I will be right back real shortly. I need to do a lot of cuts. Zack Snyder's Justice League Batman. Foreshadowing on my next review. Who knows if I can find the dang batarang. But yeah. Scale is actually really good depending. So I'd say it's good. Although maybe I'm just so used to the Arkham version being like such a huge like character. But I am okay with this. Now let's move on to my final thoughts. To bring all the lights in. So overall, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. Okay. I will admit, despite my complaints of the lack of accessories and the pretty weird articulation choices, I kind of like this figure. I don't know whether it's because, like, I don't have the connect and collect, or the fact, like, in my opinion, I don't know if there's any good Clayface. I know there's maybe the DC collectibles from, like, Arkham City, which I don't even want to know the price. I know there's maybe some classic ones, but in terms of, like, trying to scale it to your modern DC multiverse, I'd say this is a good choice. It's nicely sculpted and detailed, which kind of saves it. And it's so huge, it actually works really well as just a standard Clayface. It's big, it's hulking, it's perfect. And as a statue of sorts, it's pretty good. Now, in terms of articulation, that's where it really falters. As a figure, that's its biggest downfall. It's it's either very limited or very weirdly fragile. And I did hear reports of the arms breaking, so that's one reason why I don't know if I recommend this figure. Now, personally, as a big sort of now turning into a big Clayface fan, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'd recommend this figure. If you love Clayface, sure. However, I don't know if there's gonna be like another version of Clayface. So yeah, go buy this while you can. It's not that bad. If you live in Canada, you would know for a fact that this figure kind of costs around maybe like what? This figure kind of is more readily available than I expected. Back then, I was so worried. Now you can just freely buy it without any troubles, unlike Bane or Necron. So, yeah, out of 10, I'd probably give this a solid 7.5 to an 8. It's a good, again, a good figure, and I think it's not too bad. But I do feel that some of the choices made here are really questionable, and I do wish there was some form of improvement. Because, you know, this figure does look pretty cool, but at the same time, oh man, I really could question it. So anyways, that's my review. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you all next time with the next review, which has been already seen in the size comparison. God damn it. Anyways, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Just noticed, by the way, the only thing that actually broke was his teeth. Oh, how depressing. Would you look at that? His teeth actually broke. I don't even know where it went. I didn't even notice it until now. Oh, that actually looks so noticeable. Anyways, it was fun while it lasted. Anyways, I'll just continue on.